Hi, I'm Julie from Silver Birch Studio, and today we're going to create this colorful, fun bunch of flowers. So grab your iPad and let's go. All right, to start off, there are some freebies that go along with this tutorial today. There's links down below, of course, but you'll find a Procreate document that has a watercolor paper. This is 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels, and that's what I'll be using today. And there's also a couple of brushes that you can use to help you along in this tutorial, so be sure and check those out. We'll start out, as I mentioned, we have the document. It's 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels. It's got a water paper texture. Let me open it up here. The texture on the top, you'll paint on the layers below. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate these a bunch of times. Want a bunch of layers today for what we're going to create. So yeah, that gives us something to work on. So we'll start down here. And then as far as brushes go, I'm going to be using a few things today, but I'm going to start out with a stamping brush that I'm going to give you. It's a Penta star, 5-sided star, and we're going to use it as a guide to make our flowers. So let's start out. There's also a color palette. You'll see it here. You can download that as well. That's available to you. So we're going to use this first orangey color. It's kind of a pale yellow orange. And we're using that Penta star brush. And we're just going to drop down it once. It's a stamp brush, as you can see. We're going to use this as a guide for our flowers, but it's too bright, so we're going to take it. I'm going to drop that opacity down somewhere around 20%. Looks good to me. We'll go to the layer above, and we're going to switch our brushes to Watercolor Magic. This is the DuoColor Smooth Blooms brush that I'm using today, and this is part of my Watercolor Magic brush kit. But if you have another watercolor brush that you want to use, go right ahead. This one is a DuoColor brush, so you may not be able to get the same effect if you aren't using a brush that uses the DuoColor brush engine in Procreate 5. But you'll want to take this first pairing in the Colorful Flowers palette, and you're going to pick them in the two up here, and you're going to want to make sure that the darker one, this deep red, is selected in the circle up at the top here. So once we've got that going, the brush size we're going to bring up to about 45%, I think will be good. And we'll start in the center here. Light pressure, and then heavier pressure, and then lighter pressure. And you can see you get the color variation when you do this. So we've used the guide to kind of form our petal here. I find that if I don't use some kind of a guide or drawing or sketch or something like this, my petals tend to be all over the place. So this really helps me out to make things relatively even. I don't want them to be perfect, of course, but I just want something that's relatively even. So again, this is a very pressure sensitive brush. So we're going to go light pressure, heavier pressure, a little bit wavy at the edge, and then lighter to get that darker color and filling in the center. And again, on the next petal, light pressure, heavier pressure, brings in that other color. Light pressure, go back in and fill it out. Very nice. Light pressure, heavier pressure, a little bit wavy at the edge. And then one more. Heavier pressure, a little bit of a wave at the edge, light pressure for that darker color, and there we go. And you can see we get a nice color variation there. I'm going to turn off that our guide so that we can see what we've got. This brush has nice sort of bloom textures to it. I actually want to rotate this a little bit. So I'm gonna go up to the move tool here, which is the arrow. This green dot at the top allows you to move things. So I'm going to position it that way so that the one petal is at the top. There we go. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to lay a center on top of this flower on the next layer up. So move up to the next layer. I'm going to stick with the same color palette, but I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to go down to, this is the DuoColor Splotchy brush. You could certainly use another brush, even one of the soft wash brushes from the air brushing section native to Procreate. I'm at about 10% on this. I'm going to lay down, wash a color, then go back over it, just to create a little center for that flower. This brush has quite a bit of texture. I'm actually going to flip the colors so that the paler one is dominant now, because I want that center to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go back in and lay down a little bit lighter at the center. Let me zoom in so that you can see that. And you can see that's created a nice center to our flower. Now I'm going to go ahead and merge those two together. And because I'm going to be adding more flowers in, I'm going to want to make this somewhat opaque so that I can layer the flowers. This watercolor brush effect is see-through. So that means that anything I put under it, such as a leaf, we're going to add leaves later, or another flower, will show through. So to prevent that, but still get that watercolor translucent look, I'm going to duplicate the layer. I'm going to go up here to my magic wand, choose Hue, Saturation, and Brightness, Layer. I'm going to go down to the Brightness slider, slide it all the way to maximum. And then I'm going to take that layer and duplicate it a couple of times. Pinch those together. Duplicate again. Pinch those together, and you can see I've left it on top so that I can see when it completely covers what's underneath. I think we need to do this one more time, and now it's disappeared. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to move that beneath the flower and pinch those together. So now I can layer something under this flower, and you won't be able to see through it. So that's why I've done that. Let me turn my star guide back on. I'm going to move it. I'm going to bring it down. That looks like a good position to me. I do have my snapping on here, not the magnetics, just the snapping, and that's helping me to position things on the canvas. But you don't have to. You can set them randomly if you want. We're going to take the DuoColor Smooth Blooms brush. I've selected our two colors here. We've got the orangey color and then the burnt umber one, which is the primary one selected here. I'm going to go in, more pressure, and less pressure. And you can see we're getting a nice color variance there, a little bit different than the first one to give us some variation. Starting at the center, light pressure, heavy pressure, back down, light pressure for the darker color. Light pressure, heavier pressure, light pressure. The nice thing is you can make these flower petals as regular or irregular as you like, depending upon how you want them to look in the finished product. So there we go. All right, same routine. I'm going to go to the layer above. I'm going to turn that star off. Layer above, switch back to my DuoColor Splotchy. Create a center. A little bit of a circle. Switch so that my lighter color is dominant. Get a hint of brightness in the center. There we go, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna pinch those together. Then once again, duplicate, hue, saturation, and brightness. Turn it all the way up so that it goes white. Duplicate, duplicate, pinch, duplicate, pinch. One more time, I think. Duplicate and pinch. All right. So now we've got 2 flowers. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a third because I like odd numbers. So I'm going to put my star back on. I'm going to move it over. And then I'll speed the video up here since you've been through this twice before. You don't need to see me do it again. Just to let you know, I am going to switch back to my DuoColor Smooth Blooms brush, and I'll use the third pairing here. There's this sort of peachy pink and then sort of a bright red. So that's going to be our color pairing for this last one. And now I'll speed that video up since you know the drill at this point. Okay, back at regular speed now. Now the nice thing is, because we've made these flowers opaque, we can rearrange them at will. So let me show you. I'm on the last flower I created here. I can take it and I can move it, and I can lay it over any of the other flowers, and you still get that watercolor effect, but you won't see it through them. I'm going to turn off the star since I don't need it anymore. I actually think I'm going to rearrange the order of these. Let me move this back a little bit. It's too much in the center, I think. And I think I want the top one to be on top of the other 2 flowers. So I'm going to move it up. And I think I want this brighter orange one to be on top of the reddish pink one. So let's flip that. That's good. I'm happy with that. Those look pretty nice. So we've got a nice little bouquet here. Next step is to add some leaves. So I'm going to take another blank layer. I'm actually going to move it down beneath. And I'm going to use the DuoColor Smooth Blooms brush. I'm going to switch to this green pairing here. There's sort of a lighter bright yellow green, and then the other color is this darker, little bit olivey green. So that one is the one that we want selected there to make our leaves. I'm going to keep it at the same size, which is about 45%. And I'm going to go in and sort of put in a leaf wherever I want to. I want this to look like a bouquet, sort of from the top down. But I think some green will really help set off our flowers. So I'm going to start off, actually, let me do this. Let me turn off the flowers temporarily so that you can see the leaf as I make it. I'm going to start off to make the leaves. Light pressure, heavier pressure, light pressure. Now don't pick up your pen, sorry. Start right back down, and you'll get this really nice color effect that creates the leaf. And I even like sometimes to leave a little gap there. I think that looks quite pretty. So let's do another one here. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and then back. That looks pretty good. Let me put the flowers back on so that I can kind of place these where I want them. Let's move those leaves a little bit. I think they need to be a little bit further up. That looks better. All right. So now maybe a leaf down here. I'm actually going to lower my brush size to about 35%. All right, and how about one up here? I think I'll make a larger one up here. So let me get my brush size a little bit bigger, 40%. Okay, I'm not thrilled with the tips on a couple of these leaves. So to help me out, I'm going to go into the magic wand, the liquify tool, the edge tool. I think 20% should do it. Max pressure, nothing on the distortion, and max momentum. And I'm going to use this to help me kind of taper out and make some of these tips look a little nicer. Let's go down here and do this one. The edge tool pulls pigment towards it. So if you use it on the outside, it'll pull the pigment towards it. If you use it on the inside, it'll pull it in towards the tip of the pencil. And if you run it down the center, it'll pull things in and tighten them. Let's do this one too. I think this one could taper down just a hair. I think we'll call that a success. Excellent. I think the next trick will be to give us a little background here. So in this case, we're going to pick this final color that we haven't used yet. It's kind of a warm creamy beige. Make sure that that one's selected up in your circle selector there. And then this is also one of the free brushes that I'm giving you. It's called SBS Texture. Links down below to all the freebies. I'm using this at around 53–54%. Tap it once in the middle and it will kind of give you a textured background. This is a stamping brush, so it's something that you can use to create a background to give a little texture. When you don't want anything that's too distracting, you can use different colors. Of course, I just selected this one because I didn't want to distract from the flowers. I just wanted to create a nice little background for it. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. There should be more tutorials to come. Don't forget to check out the links down below. Subscribe, do all that usual stuff. You know the drill. Be sure to download those freebies because they'll definitely be fun for you. Thanks so much for joining me and have a great day.